Wealth does not arrive gradually. That is the lie of every graph you have ever seen with a smooth upward curve. In reality, financial lives move in lurches. Long stretches of grinding where nothing seems to change, interrupted by brief windows where everything shifts. There are three of these windows. Three specific milestones that the overwhelming majority of wealthy people pass through, and that the overwhelming majority of people who stay broke either never reached or reached and fumbled. A 34-year-old teacher in Columbus making $58,000 a year just crossed the second one. A 41-year-old software contractor in Austin making $112,000 never crossed the first. 7 years from now, their net worths will look nothing like you would predict based on their incomes. Because income does not decide wealth. Milestones do. I'm Zik, and I have spent years studying not just how money compounds, but where it compounds. Not evenly, not predictably. At very specific thresholds that most people are never taught to look for. Today, I am going to walk you through all three. If you understand them and you prepare for each one deliberately, you will shortcut years, possibly decades, off the timeline most people resign themselves to. If you miss them, no amount of income will save you. Let me show you why. Milestone 1. The first $10,000 of invested capital. Not saved, invested. This distinction is everything, and most people conflate the two for years. Saving means money exists, investing means money works. And until you have $10,000 deployed in actual assets, whether that is a broad index fund, a retirement account, or another legitimate investment vehicle, you have not crossed the first milestone. You are still in the accumulation waiting room. Here is why 10,000 matters so specifically. Below this number, compounding is essentially invisible. If you invest $2,000 and the market returns 10%, you earn $200. That is not going to change your feelings about anything. It will not motivate you. It will not create momentum. It is psychologically inert. But at 10,000, a 10% return is $1,000. That is money you can feel. That is a rent payment. That is a round-trip flight. That is a number large enough that your brain registers it as real income generated by something other than your time. And that registration is the psychological ignition point for wealth building. Most people never cross this milestone because of what I call the motivation desert. The zone between 0 and 10,000 in invested assets where compounding is too small to see, too slow to feel, and too fragile to survive the first emergency, the only way across the desert is mechanical. Automated contributions, a fixed percentage, removed from your checking account before your decision-making brain gets involved. The people who cross this milestone are not more disciplined than the people who do not. They are more automated. Let me give you the math that sits on the other side. $10,000 invested at age 25, with no additional contributions ever, at an average return of 8%, becomes over $100,000 by age 55. Just from crossing the milestone once and leaving it alone. Now imagine you keep contributing after crossing it. That is where the second milestone enters. Milestone 2, $100,000 in total net worth. Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's partner for over 6 decades, reportedly said that the first 100,000 is the hardest. He was not being poetic, he was being mathematical. The journey from 0 to 100,000 at a 7% return and a consistent monthly investment of $500 takes roughly 11 years. The journey from 100,000 to 200,000 with the same contribution and the same return takes about 5.5 years. Half the time. Same effort, same contributions, but the compounding base is now large enough that the market is doing more work than you are. This is the milestone where your relationship with money fundamentally changes. Below 100,000, you are the engine. Your labor, your contributions, your sacrifices are driving almost all of the growth. Above 100,000, the portfolio starts pulling its own weight. And somewhere between 100 and 150,000, a remarkable crossover happens. Your annual investment returns begin to exceed your annual contributions. You are no longer the primary source of your own wealth growth. The money is. If this is helping you so far, take 2 seconds to hit the like button. It really helps the channel. But here is where so many people fumble this milestone. They reach 100,000 and they feel wealthy for the first time. That feeling is dangerous, not because it is wrong, but because of what it triggers. Lifestyle inflation, a nicer apartment, a car upgrade, a vacation that costs $4,000 instead of $1,500. Each of these decisions feels earned and reasonable in isolation. But together, they often raise monthly expenses by $800 to $1,500. That is money that was previously being invested. And pulling that money out of the compounding engine at exactly the moment the engine reaches operational velocity is one of the most expensive decisions a person can make. Run the numbers. If you hit 100,000 at age 35 and increase your spending by $1,000 a month instead of maintaining your investment rate, you will arrive at age 55 with roughly $350,000 less than the version of you who held the line, $350,000. Not because of a bad investment, not because of a job loss, because you let a feeling override a milestone. The people who navigate this correctly do something counterintuitive. When they hit 100,000, instead of spending more, they invest more. They increase their contribution rate by even 1 or 2%. They let the psychological high of crossing the milestone fuel acceleration instead of celebration. This does not mean they never enjoy their money. It means they understand that the period immediately after 100,000 is the highest leverage compounding window of their entire financial life, and they refuse to waste it. Milestone 3. The year your passive income covers your baseline expenses. This is the milestone that actually equals freedom, and it is the one that most people never think about concretely because it feels impossibly far away. But it is closer than you think, and it requires a number that might surprise you. Most people, when they imagine financial freedom, picture millions of dollars. But financial freedom is not a net worth number. It is a ratio. It is the point where your investments generate enough income through dividends, interest, or systematic withdrawals to cover your non-negotiable monthly expenses without touching your principal and without requiring your labor. For someone whose baseline expenses are $3,000 a month, that is $36,000 a year. Using the 4% rule, which estimates a sustainable annual withdrawal rate from a diversified portfolio, you need roughly $900,000 invested to cover that baseline. That sounds like a lot. But remember what we just learned about milestones 1 and 2? If you cross the first at 25 and the second at 35, the compounding math to reach 900,000 by your late 40s or early 50s is not fantasy, it is a trajectory. But the hidden variable in this milestone is not the portfolio, it is the expenses. Most people never reach financial freedom not because they cannot build a large enough portfolio, but because their baseline expenses keep rising to match their income. A person who earns $150,000 but has baseline expenses of $8,000 a month needs $2.4 million to achieve this milestone. A person earning $75,000 with baseline expenses of $3,000 a month needs $900,000. The lower earner reaches freedom first, not because of better investments, because of a lower denominator. This is the most counterintuitive truth in all of personal finance. The fastest path to financial freedom is not maximizing income, it is minimizing the number your portfolio needs to replace. Every dollar you remove from your baseline expenses permanently reduces the portfolio required and brings the milestone closer by months or years. And if you are actually getting something out of this, consider subscribing. I make videos like this every week. Here is what I want you to do this week. First, calculate your exact invested assets. Not your checking account, not your car's value, your money that is deployed in the market or in income-producing assets. If you have not crossed 10,000, your single priority is getting there. Automate a contribution today, even if it is $50 a week. Second, If you are approaching or past 100,000 in net worth, write down your current monthly investment amount. Then ask yourself honestly whether your lifestyle has inflated since you started building wealth. If it has, identify one expense you added in the last 2 years that you could reduce or eliminate. Redirect that amount into your investment account this month. Third, calculate your baseline monthly expenses, not your total spending. Your non-negotiable baseline: rent or mortgage, utilities, insurance, food at home, transportation, basic obligations. Multiply that number by 300. That is a rough approximation of the portfolio you need for milestone 3. Write that number down. Look at it. Let it become specific instead of abstract, because a specific target changes behavior in ways that a vague dream of being wealthy never will. Fourth, calculate the gap between where you are now and each milestone you have not yet crossed. Then calculate how many months it would take at your current savings and return rate. If the number is uncomfortable, do not flinch. Adjust the contribution, not the goal. Now, remember that teacher in Columbus I mentioned at the beginning? $58,000 a year, not a high income by any standard, but she crossed the $10,000 invested milestone at 28, the $100,000 net worth milestone at 34, and she has her baseline expenses low enough that milestone 3 is mathematically achievable by 49. She did not do this with a windfall or a second job. She did it by knowing exactly where the milestones were and refusing to let lifestyle inflation consume the compounding runway between them. The contractor in Austin earns nearly double her salary, but he crossed the first milestone late, inflated his lifestyle after crossing the second, and has never once calculated his baseline expense number. He is not bad with money. He is not irresponsible. He simply never learned that wealth is not built on income. It is built on milestones. And milestones are built on knowing where they are before you reach them. 3 thresholds: $10,000 invested, $100,000 in net worth, passive income covering your baseline. That is the entire architecture. Everything else is noise. The only question that matters right now is, which milestone are you heading toward, and are you doing it on purpose? Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next video.